Every parent who has a child under the age of 18 has a legal obligation to support that child to the best of his or her ability. That means that both mothers and fathers are responsible to financially take care of their children. One of the first things that we need to acknowledge is that nobody likes child support. It's never enough money to support a child, so the custodial parent is always stretching to make ends meet. And the amount is always more than a paying parent can afford. However, studies have shown that when child support is regularly and timely paid so that the receiving parent can count on it being budgeted in their budget, the children live a smoother life. They know that support is being paid, and they usually have a better relationship with the paying parent than in those families where the payor makes payments sporadically or seldom or is a deadbeat. So if you're the payor, it really helps your children if you pay the full amount and on time. Your children will thank you for it when they grow up. If you are the receiving parent, consider yourself lucky and speak kindly of the parent who pays regularly and on time. In most cases, one parent will have to pay the other parent some amount of money to help care for their children. There's a very complicated mathematical formula that's set out in a part of our law called Family Code Section 4055. But if you want to understand it better, you should start reading several sections in the Family Code, starting at 3500 and ending at 4253. It's hard reading, and it is enough to totally boggle your mind. So if you want any help on this topic, you should also consider going to see the family law facilitator at the court, or perhaps this might be a time for you to consider having a consultation with a family law attorney who can help explain to you your rights and responsibilities and how the law affects your particular situation. One important thing for you to know, but it will be discussed later in a segment on spousal support, is that child support is not deductible from the payor's income for tax purposes, and the person who receives it does not have to claim it on his or her tax return. That means child support is expensive money for the payor and free money for the payee. There are several computer programs that have been approved by the Judicial Council that are used to determine and calculate California's guideline child support. These programs are known by names such as DissoMaster, Support Tax, or Cal Support Pro. There are other ones available online, and it would be smart for you to find out which support calculation program the court uses in your county so that you can use that one. Most of the time, they will all come up with calculations and solutions that are real close to one another. Well, it probably sounds pretty easy. Just plug in the numbers, hit a button, and the computer will tell you how much the guideline support is. That's the general idea. The problem is, what numbers are you going to plug in? That's what people fight over. Before you start plugging in the numbers, I want to explain to you the factors that are considered in computing support. Remember, when you're asked to provide a figure, everything is calculated by the month. The first thing we will need to disclose is how many minor children are there in this relationship, and who do they live with most of the time. Second, we'll need to find out how much time does each child spend with the other parent, who's often referred to as the non-custodial parent. We can't get away from income taxes, so we will need to provide information on what the tax filing status is for each parent, how many dependent exemptions each parent claims on his or her tax return. We need to list all sources of each parent's income. Income can come from a variety of different sources, including wages, which would be a paycheck for most employees, commissions, bonuses, trust income, and self-employment income. We need to know how much money each parent makes for a typical month. And if income fluctuates or changes, we also need to figure out what the average monthly income is. We need to determine whether either parent receives public assistance or child support for other children not of this relationship. Does either parent receive other tax-free money? If so, how much? Has either parent remarried to someone else? And is that new spouse working? And if so, what is that new spouse's average monthly income? Does either spouse set aside retirement funds? And if so, how much? Does either spouse pay spousal support or alimony to another former spouse? Does either spouse pay child support for children from a different relationship? And if so, how much? How much does either parent pay or have deducted from his or her check for health insurance? Does either parent have additional out-of-pocket health, dental, medical, prescription drug therapy costs? These would be expenses that would not be covered or reimbursed by a health insurance plan. If that's the case, how much? If either parent owns their home as opposed to renting, then we need to find out how much a month that parent pays towards the property taxes and how much a month that parent pays toward interest on their mortgage payment. Does either parent have other significant deductions from his or her tax return that have not yet been listed? If so, how much? If either parent is required to join a union for their work and is required to pay dues, we need to know that and how much that total is on a monthly basis. If either parent works as a teacher for certain government agencies or for certain railroads, they may have money taken out of their check for mandatory retirement. This is a retirement plan where they have no choice. If so, how much? Does either parent have other minor children, natural or adopted, who live with her or him? If so, how many? Are there any extraordinary hardships that should be considered? If so, what are they and how much do they cost? How much is spent by either parent for daycare or childcare for the children who are the subject of this case? Are there any extraordinary educational expenses that are necessary for these children? If so, what are they and how much do they cost? Are there any travel costs that are necessary so that visitation can occur? If so, what is this average monthly amount? Are there any other special circumstances that should be considered? If so, what are they and what is the cost? After all of these circumstances and information is considered and the numbers are finally agreed to and entered into the computer program that performs the support calculation, the end result will be that the program will tell you how much the monthly guideline child support is. If you are figuring this out in court, the judge at a hearing is required to order the guideline amount. But if you are negotiating just between the two of you, either outside the court or before you ever get to court, you and the other parent can agree to some figure that is either higher or lower than the guideline amount, if you wish to do this. If this does occur, either parent can go to court at any time and ask the court to order the guideline support when the agreement calls for a non-guideline amount. If you agree to something else, you can get the Family Law Form 350. Fill it out, both of you sign it, and submit it to the court for the judge to sign. And after it's filed, your agreed upon amount will become the new court order. If both parents want the child support, as ordered, to be paid by wage assignment directly from the payer's employee to the payee, so it is taken out of the payer's paycheck, then you will need to complete one additional form called FL 195. It's a good idea to prepare them both together and have it signed by the judge and returned to you. Once you get it back, don't forget the final step, which is to send the filed copy of FL 196 to the payor's employer so that they will receive it and begin taking the support amount out of the paycheck and paying it to the payee. If the payer wants to pay otherwise and is always on time, such as using personal checks or electronic fund transfers, then you can agree to have the support paid this way. As a word of caution, always make the payment in a form that can be proved sometime down the road. If you write a check and get the checks returned to you by your financial institution, you should keep those. If you ever pay by cash, it's a good idea to have the payee sign a receipt acknowledging that you made the payment and for which month the support is for. Be sure to keep all your records of support payments until your youngest child is at least 21. In addition to child support, there are often extra costs for children that will need to be shared. Usually, these are health care costs, To understand how to share these costs and get reimbursed for them, be sure to read and attach Judicial Council Form FL 692. That will explain the procedures that you will follow to get reimbursed if you advance any of these uninsured healthcare costs. Finally, if you have a situation where things are not as smooth as described above, you can go to your local Department of Child Support Services and ask for their help.